Hi guys! In a previous video, I showed you how we set up our Intex 16-foot by 48-inch Ultra Frame swimming pool. Today, the pool needs to be vacuumed. I also need to clean the filter cartridge in the filter pump. Then I'll need to remove the lime scale buildup in the saltwater chlorinator. I'll give the floating skimmer a scrub too. This might seem like a lot of information. I'll try to explain it as best I can without leaving anything out. Also, this is how I maintain my pool. There may be other ways, even better ways of doing this. With that said, here is my setup. All electrical equipment, such as the filter pump and saltwater chlorinator, is plugged into a ground fault circuit interrupter, or GFCI. If your outlet doesn't have one, or your pool equipment doesn't have one included, you can get one like this at a home improvement store. I have chosen to use a saltwater chlorination system instead of chlorine to keep the pool water sanitized. I'll explain the saltwater system later, but first, in order to make the system work, you need a filter pump. I'm using the Intex filter pump the pool came with, which is sufficient. It uses a Type A paper cartridge. This filter pumps 1,500 gallons per hour. The pool contains a little over 5,600 gallons of water. This particular model has a timer option on it. There have been many times that I have left the filter pump running all night with no problems. Part of the reason I do this is because we do not have a pool cover. Running the filter pump with the floating surface skimmer keeps leaves and bugs from accumulating either on the surface of the water or on the bottom of the pool, meaning less manual skimming and vacuuming for me. The floating pool skimmer is optional. Some pool kits will come with it, but it can be purchased separately. I recommend it. This is the Intex crystal clear saltwater system, which is connected to the filter pump. To make this work, you must add pool salt to the water. Pool salt comes in 40-pound bags and can be found at places like Home Depot, Lowe's, or other home improvement stores. Salt is normally added to the water only once, when you first fill up the pool. There will be no need to add more salt throughout the season unless a fair amount of water is physically removed from the pool. Water evaporation does not remove the salt. For a pool this size, I have added 125 pounds of pool salt to the water. We distributed the salt around the perimeter of the pool gradually with a cup. Then we allowed the filter pump to run for 12 to 24 hours to help the salt dissolve and evenly disperse in the water before turning the saltwater chlorinator on. When the salt is fully dissolved, the chlorinator needs to be turned on for about 6 to 8 hours the first time. After that, it could be run 4 or up to 6 hours depending on ambient air temperature. I've set mine to run 6 hours because the air temperature has been at or above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I need to clean the saltwater chlorinator today because there's some lime scale buildup. I'll turn the unit off first before cleaning. I also need to turn off the filter pump. For extra safety, unplug the filter pump and the saltwater chlorinator from the outlet. Then I'll close the valves in the hoses attached to the pool to keep the water in the pool. Just ignore this bit of rope. I use it to help keep the surface skimmer attached to the side of the pool. I'll explain that later. Okay, back to the valves. Make sure they are closed. Next, I want to clean the paper filter. I unscrew the top valve to release some pressure before taking off the lid. I probably need a new paper filter, but you can reuse the same one several times by spraying it off with a garden hose that has a sprayer attachment on it. I set the sprayer to jet spray for the best results. Now, I only normally spray out the filter pump reservoir like this if I'm not cleaning the chlorinator. I'm just showing you this for an example. You can also dump the dirty water out or release through the small valve at the bottom of the unit. As for the filter cartridge, I normally hold it in my hand and spray it, but right now I'm holding the camera. Now to dissolve the lime buildup on the electrolytic cell in the saltwater chlorinator, I'll be using white vinegar. There is no need to try to brush off the buildup. In fact, brushing the cell could damage it. The chlorinator came with caps to put over the holes where the hoses attach. You're supposed to screw the caps on, then unscrew this part that holds the copper ionizer to have an opening to pour the vinegar into. However, I'm going to use only one cap and keep it simple, since I've had a little bit of trouble getting the ionizer part back on without it leaking water. Okay, so hose is off, then a cap. Then I carefully tip the unit on its end and fill it up with the white vinegar. I'll let this soak for maybe an hour or maybe a little less until the lime scale has completely dissolved. Looks pretty clean, time for a rinse. And now the hoses go back on. I've put the filter cartridge back in the filter pump. I'll make sure the gasket is in place, then press the cover onto the filter. And screw it on with the ring securely. The top valve needs to be left open to release trapped air before operating the unit. Now, open the plunger valves to allow water from the pool to enter the pump and chlorinator. Let some water release out of the valve on the pump to get the air pocket out. And then close the valve when you're sure the air is out. It's important not to run a filter pump when it is dry. It will overheat and damage the pump, so make sure the air pocket is out. You'll see that there may be some air in the chlorinator, but once the filter pump is turned on, most of that air pocket will be pushed out. Shake the hoses a bit to get the rest of the air out of the line. Another thing that I like to do is put my hand over the inlet nozzle off and on for a few seconds, and that seems to help as well. Once that's done, I'll turn on the chlorinator. This unit automatically returns to whatever previous setting you had it on. In this case, I've set it to 6 hours. After running for 6 hours, it will shut itself off until the next day at the same time I turned it on today. This unit comes with a copper ionizer, which I have only used once, and that was last year. It's supposed to keep algae from growing in the pool, but since I've not had an algae problem, I don't really use it. The chlorinator part seems to work just fine for now. Here are the other tools I'll be using to clean the pool. This pool vacuum attaches to the adjustable pole. The hose attaches to the strainer on the inside of the pool to create the suction for it to work. This one's a little bit old and it has a few small cracks in it, but nothing a little duct tape can't fix. I chose this type of pool vac because the filter pump does all the work, helping to pick up debris from the bottom of the pool, including small particles like sand. I'll also be using a leaf and bug skimmer to catch larger things floating on the water's surface. I got this skimmer attachment separately at Walmart, but it works with the adjustable pole I already had. You can get a complete above-ground pool maintenance kit at Amazon.com. Before I vacuum the pool, I like to use the skimmer to get the floating bugs and things like that out of the pool. Here is how I use the pool vac. For safety, you should first turn off the filter pump. Sometimes I don't do that, but you should probably do that. I've attached the vac to the adjustable pole. I want to make sure to get the air out of the vacuum and out of the hose before I attach the hose to the strainer. To do this, I push the vacuum into the water and feed the hose in after it. If I just toss the hose in, it'll be full of air, which is not good for the filter pump. Then I screw the hose attachment onto the strainer. Keeping the vac submerged, I turn on the filter pump. The vacuum should be slowly guided along the pool floor. That way, surrounding debris is not disturbed and sent floating around the pool. When done vacuuming, the filter pump should be turned off, then the hose can be removed from the strainer. It's easier to first lift the vac out of the pool and let the water drain out. Then gradually remove the hose, letting the water drain back into the pool. Since debris is trapped in the VAX filter bag, it won't be released back into the pool by doing this. I'll give the filter bag a rinse later. Now, with the filter pump still off, I'll install the floating surface skimmer to keep the surface of the pool clean. I want to make sure there are no air pockets in the hose, so I push the hose into the pool, then submerge the main body of the skimmer. I go ahead and screw the hose onto the strainer at this time while the entire unit is submerged. By doing it this way, I can avoid getting the hose twisted. The skimmer then hooks onto the pool wall and has fasteners that sort of help to keep it in place. The skimmer should be adjusted so that it stays submerged. I use a little bit of rope to keep the skimmer from coming undone. If it comes loose, the bottom part will float to the surface and suction air, which again is bad for the filter pump. The basket and the blue part go in and start working. This system works pretty well and saves me a lot of time. I almost forgot to mention something about testing the pool water. After the chlorinator has finished its cycle, you can test the water for chlorine using a pool test kit like this one, or one that uses test strips. Follow the instructions. If the pool doesn't have enough chlorine, you may need to run the chlorinator a bit longer. If there is too much chlorine, shorten the time. I think that about wraps it up. Oh, if you're wondering how often I do this type of maintenance, I vacuum the pool as necessary, particularly when I know we'll be swimming that day. The filter pump and the saltwater chlorinator, they run daily according to the amount of time necessary to create plenty of chlorine and to keep the water clean. I clean the paper filter about once a week, or more often if I need to vacuum a lot. As for the saltwater chlorinator, I periodically check it throughout the week. It self-cleans part of the time, but within about 2 weeks I go ahead and soak it in vinegar. How often you will clean yours depends on if your water is very hard or not. If the chlorinator is indicating low salt, it may just need to be cleaned. Don't add salt until you've cleaned the chlorinator and have run it again. Okay, I hope you found this video useful. Thank you all so much for watching and for subscribing. You all take care out there, and I will see you next time. Bye!